very warm welcome to this very special conversation that we're having. I have with me someone who has been a tech person all along. I have with me Mehta, who's the VP of Engineering at Pocky Basis. Thank you, Viral, for joining us today on this chat on the future of work. Before I get on to the chat, I just want to give the audience a little bit of an introduction of you. So, for all of those who don't know Viral, he's been a tech guy for the last more than a decade. He's been working with several companies, including Microsoft. And if you have any queries on C++, algorithms, and anything in the computer space, you know who to reach out to. Viral, the big topic of discussion that we have today, and it's a very interesting and relevant topic at this point in time, which is building the tech team of the future, something that most startups are aspiring to build a strong, important team. And, Viral, I was just reading through, some very interesting things about teamwork. And, before I ask you my first question, I just want to say teamwork, this is something that I read on the internet. Teamwork makes the dream work, but when the vision becomes a nightmare, that's when the leader has a big dream and a bad team. So, clearly that's how important team building is. Tell us, what does it take to build a successful team? Because, who we have here is audiences who are in the tech space, entrepreneurs, people who want to build successful teams. So give us some sort of indication on this front.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. One caveat, it's been a long time since I've coded. I've become what I call management overhead now for a long time. So I've lost some of those skills, but they'll come back. But I can definitely tell you where to go read those books. Team building. So one of my VPs at Microsoft used to say, we have a rock star team, not a team of rock stars. And that kind of, for me, encapsulates what kind of people you want in the team. You want people who care. Fundamentally, you want people who care. Skills can be worked on, attitude cannot be worked on. So you get people who care about your product, who care about excelling themselves, who care about enhancing their own craft, be it coding, be it deployment, be it testing, whichever little thing they're working on. They have to care about the quality of their craft, and the skills can be learned. I am of the belief that knowing specific languages, frameworks, doesn't really matter as long as your fundamentals are strong. So pick one framework, get really good at it, and then you'll start seeing similarities everywhere else. But at the end of the day, find people who care, have strong fundamentals, and then everything else can grow from there.
But at this point in time, when you look at the startup ecosystem, there are so many people who want to build credible teams. But what happens is the vision mismatch is something that a lot of people, face as a consequence of hiring a team too fast. So what is the kind of process that one needs to go about when you want to look at hiring somebody who shares the same vision as you?
So in case of, if the founder is non-technical, then it's the role of the technical head, be it however the organization set up, either CTO, VP engineering, head of engineering, however the organization set up. It's the role of that person to convert the founder's vision into a technical vision, so that it can be communicated better with the engineers, fundamentally, the tech team. So vision is important, but technical vision and converting that vision into exciting engineering problems is the role of, it's like literally my job. If I'm not able to do that, then I will not be successful at building the team. So that is super important because the engineer does not care about getting, let's take one of the most successful startups in India, Swiggy, about delivery and food and all of that. They want to build a system that works beautifully. So if you can convert the delivery problems into a fully automated system that works beautifully and adjusts and all of that, that's a win. then you have engineers excited to work on that.
Right, Viral, I have a lot more questions, but before I get into the questions, I want to tell our audience that Viral is here to answer all your questions as well. So we'll be taking some questions at the end of this session too. So please drop in your questions in the chat box below, and we'll be answering these questions towards the end of this chat. Viral, I want to ask you one very important question, and that's something that a lot of people have on their minds is what are the qualities of a great tech team? Are there 3 or 4 qualities that you would highlight as being important qualities before you hire somebody or you find the right fit into a team?
So if I just rattle off a few qualities that come to mind, one is, do they have product thinking? The worst is when you have to spell out every single requirement to an engineer in a startup. This is for a startup answer. This is not an answer at a big corporation or something, right? If you have to spell every little detail of every feature out to the engineers so that they can build it, then that process is going to slow and it's not as satisfying. In startup, your only advantage against the big guys is speed. So you want people who have a shared understanding. I don't want to use the word vision because it gets overused, but have a shared understanding of where we are going and what the core tenets are. And so that when a product person or a operations person comes up with a problem, even the engineer should convert it into a solution, like a tech solution, or like, okay, I understand, I'll fix it. You will not have this problem anymore, right? And then how they fix it is important, but having a shared product vision is super critical with engineering. So get people who actually understand that you have to become product engineer. You're not a Java, Android, Flutter, React, whatever engineer. You're a product. You're trying to build a product. That is the most important thing, right? Second, great fundamentals. You have to understand how horizontal and vertical scaling works in this ecosystem. If you don't get that, then you'll have trouble going in the future. Third is Third is open to new ideas and open to learning and can communicate. So one of the biggest drawbacks the engineering education system has is people are not taught how to communicate well, be it spoken and definitely not written. And so much of our communication is written, especially during lockdown, on Slack messages, on Teams messages, or wherever else. You have to get better at writing things up. So these are like 3-4 things that come to mind on how to build a high quality team.
But when you look at hard skills versus soft skills, from a perspective of somebody who's running a company, which of the two do you value more?
Soft skills, 100%.
And why would you think so?
I would much rather somebody tell me that this thing is late and be able to explain to me why something is late than getting 2 words from a competent engineer. Like, I wouldn't understand, and that person, because we are running a team, and if you can't communicate well, then you're gonna fall back into the give me the requirements and I'll build it, versus, hey, here's the problem, help fix this problem from the tech side as well. So 100%, if I have to pick between the two, then it's soft skills. But why this is a false dichotomy. You need both. You should try and get both.
Well, absolutely. I think both are, I would say both are equally important, because I don't think you could do without the other. Or can you?
No, of course. I mean, yeah. I can't get somebody who's never opened up a programming language and even if they are great at soft skills. But usually in life, the questions are not black and white. The questions are 60-40. It's 60-40.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
In the 60-40 case, which 60 will you pick? If it's a 80-20 case, of course, that person is not going to make it. 60-40, 45-55, if that's the zone you are in, then I would go towards people with better soft skills, because hard skills can be learned. There are a million blogs out there that teach you new programming languages and everything.
Correct. Right. When you talk about the Gen Z, these are the guys the younger lot, the people who are just getting into the space. What do you think is the single most motivating factor for them to be able to retain them? Because these are the guys who've got the latest set of skills out there in the market. So, how do you retain such talent? Because considering the kind of attrition that we're seeing in the industry, how important is it to retain such a talent?
I don't know if this is a generational problem. I think it's a market forces problem so much, not so much a generational problem. I think Gen Z is probably the most self-aware generation we've had yet. Right? They value their time, they value their motivation, and because the market is so full with opportunities, they will not accept a substandard job, and that is why you start seeing attrition. Like, hey, I have better opportunities there. There is more money. There is better work. Why will I stay here? Right? They are much smarter than I guess my generation was when we started working. Right? And I was much smarter than the generation before. So attrition is a problem, and there are a few ways of solving it. One is you value them and you make sure that you keep giving them good work, high quality work. Second, the work has to be uh, important enough that all the way up and down the chain, especially in a relatively small startup, like less than 100 people startup, the founders know what each developer is working on roughly. Right? It can't be like hands off, because that's how they get a lot of value. Like, hey, this guy knows. This guy's asking me questions about this. Let's make this better. Let's make this faster. Um, and if you have the cash, you have to pay them well, because money is not money is a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition to keep people around. But if you don't have the cash, then you're not going to be able to maintain a high quality team for very long. You'll be able to maintain it for a while. And if you get those super dedicated, aligned with your vision kind of people, give them equity, make them founders.
Wow, that's an interesting thought.
Or when I make them founders, as in give them equity, get them aligned with you, so that they are really working. But if you're just building a tech team, you have to. I mean, both those things are important. High quality and encouraging work environment. Both are important.
And I think a lot of companies have started doing this, where they're giving, employees some sort of equity in the company so that they have a sense of ownership as far as the company is concerned. Audience, are waiting for your questions. Do drop in questions in the chat box. Viral will be very happy to answer these questions at the end. But, Viral, when you look at the whole concept of upskilling, how important is it to get upskilled in the industry? And is it easy to get upskilled in the tech industry?
Tech industry probably is the easiest industry to get upskilled in, because anytime something new comes up, there are a million people on the web who start doing tutorials and courses, and in every single language. Like, you want to learn AI in Telugu, there is some YouTube channel who is explaining that. If you want to learn AI in Estonian, there is some YouTube channel explaining to you that. Right? So probably the tech industry is the easiest one to get started on. And it is important to keep upskilling, because it's not important in the scale of months, but it is important at the scale of like every couple of years. Interesting new things come, and there are slow but definite seismic shifts in the way the technology is built. So it's super important to keep upskilling. But if upskilling is very easy, you just, as an organization, you have to provide time to upskill. And also, as a technical leader, if I start seeing that, hey, this Golang is gathering steam, we should kind of see if we want to build some muscle inside the company to check it out. Then I'll go to the tech team like, hey, have you guys, anybody learned about Golang? Like, no, I was just reading about a blog. You want to write the next service in Golang, like a small one, to see what it's like? Check it out, right? If it's a small service, independent service, go write in Golang. Take a few more days. That's one way to upskill, and then slowly everybody will go maintain Golang and everybody gets upskilled. Now there is Now everybody in the backend team now understands how to run services in Golang, right?
Right. I mean, you've worked at so many companies at this point in time. I'm sure you have a whole set of learnings from, how it, on the importance of building a strong and successful tech team. So, if you could tell our audience some learnings that you've learned, picked up along the way.
Um, it's uh, it's a very wide question to answer.
Okay, what mistakes should you avoid when you hire a tech team? I think that is a more relevant question.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would urge you to not hire rock stars, especially if they are, when you say rock star, if they come with the attitude of rock star, then do not hire rock stars. The amount of, they are incredibly productive, but they make everybody else not work at their peak efficiency. So get people who you would not imagine saying, this guy, I don't know what he does, but when he's around in the room, everybody is happy and everybody just works harder, right? So that's the kind of guys you can find that person. But hire people who are have humility about their craft. It is very, very important to understand that you don't know everything and you can't build everything. So we'll get there, right? Iteratively keep everything building better and have strong fundamental skills. Do not hire somebody because they know a particular language. That is a poor idea.
How important is it, Viral, to build a diverse team? Because, you may end up hiring people with a similar skill sets, but diversity, can you give us some, indication on how important it is to build a diverse team, specifically a tech team?
It is, of course, it's super important. I'll give you examples. My founders and I all went to college together in the US. Our perspectives are very different from somebody who went to engineering school here, right? And that person's perspective is very different from our consumers who are 15, 18, 20-year-old gamers on their phone, PUBG players, men, women, boys, girls, and everything else in between. So we need people who have similar life experiences around to help us make our products better and make products for our consumers, right? For example, and also internally. So I'll give you an example. I was coming up for the first year, I was coming up with the HR appraisal plan. And of course, all of my thoughts were warped by my experience at Microsoft. And I drew it out and I showed it to one of my colleagues who went to engineering school here, spent 5-10 years working here. And he's like, dude, are you crazy? This will never work. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is great, blah, blah, blah. It's research. No, it won't work. Here's how we do it. I'm like, okay. And I took that advice, tentatively sussed it out, and I realized I was so wrong. I was about to make a massive mistake that would have cost me a lot of attrition. And I was saved because somebody else had a different perspective. So it's very important to have perspectives across. So in our team, we have people from all over India. We have people from different genders. And this is the tech team specifically and the wider team. And it is super duper important. It helps you learn about things that you would have never thought. Another quick example that kind of affected, I don't know how right or wrong this is, and I might be about to enter a controversial topic, but one of our community managers said, the way to market in Tamil Nadu is Tamilians care about their language a lot. The way to market in Kerala, of course they care about the language, but they care about the land more. So for them, Kerala is important. Malayalam is not as important as Kerala. The people in Tamil Nadu, the language is more important. So let's make content for both these states, which are On this side, it is more language focused, language play and all of that. And on the Kerala side, more Kerala focused and like cultural focus of the state. I would have never guessed this. And this is some engineer who came and told me this. Like, don't do content like this. I'll tell you how to make content. I'm like, okay, tell me. And we actually use that in strategy.
And it worked?
Yeah, to some extent it worked. It worked. I mean, we had to have some content idea, how to think about content. And it was great. It worked. And I don't know how much of it. It's very hard to see impact of individual things like this, but that gave us a thesis at least, which we didn't have before. And that's super important at the leadership level.
Absolutely. You know, we're going to come to audience questions, Viral. We already have a question from Cheryl Kurian, where she's asked, do you believe that a techie would be able to develop his soft skills as when he works on projects within an organization? Or is it a must criteria when hiring a tech expert within the team?
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks for the question. We can do, of course, you can learn soft skills. It's not, I mean, everybody has learned these skills. The question that was posed by Priya was, given an option of 40% tech to 60% soft skills or hard skills or soft skills or vice versa, which one would you pick? So in that case, I would pick soft skills. But to answer your specific question, of course, you can develop soft skills. It is something that you have to actively recognize that you need to work on these items and then go get help or start writing. Writing is the best way of developing soft skills. Start writing. If you have a thought, write it up in a paragraph and send it. Don't call the guy and see if that works, because writing helps you communicate better in general and puts your thoughts better.
Right, that's an interesting response. We have another question from Priyam Das on how, as a CTO, can you encourage a tech member to grow his product mindset out of the box other than just do your work?
Thanks, Priyam, for the question. This is a big challenge, and the only way to do it is make sure your devs have a voice in product making and product strategy. So what we do is ideally every sprint, but it doesn't happen as often in real life, but ideally every sprint, we get together, every pod, every dev who works on a set of features gets together and everybody gives ideas. It is not the job of the product team only to come up with ideas. Product team's job is to identify which ideas have what impact and pick the right ones and move it forward. But the whole concept that ideas can only come from product team is not a good idea. So get everybody involved in the product strategy process. Let them know how the sausage is made. And then ask them that, hey, if you're working on, let's say you're working on search within some product. Hey, how are you defining the KPI of the search? Have you improved the quality of the search? And get them to start getting interested in the KPIs of that, what they're working on. That is when they'll understand, oh, this is the goal, this is the goal, this is the goal. And that's when you start getting PMs thinking like, that's when it gets engineers starting to have a product mindset. Right? Get them on user calls. It is super important for engineers to be on user calls. Let them hear the complaints and the highs and the lows of a user call when it goes well or does not go well. So they also understand, okay, this is what I'm solving for. Don't keep them in a silo.
Right. We have another question from a user where the user has asked that in a fast-moving startup, engineering ends up being a feature factory and builds hacks on engineering, which demotivates strong engineers for not being able to demonstrate their craft. So how do you negotiate the right capacity for engineering problems too?
I wish I had a simple answer for this. This is a real problem. The leadership has to be constantly aware and prevent the feature factory problem. And it's not just engineering, it also affects the product team. Right? The product team gets into this mindset is, I just have to keep releasing features. No, your job is to make the product work. not just keep releasing features. If an existing feature is not working, what can you do to make it work? What iterations are you going to do to make it work? Not just, don't start really keep releasing new features every time. So it's a tough one, but it is something that has to come from your leadership. This is not the job of individual engineers. The leadership has to be constantly aware, saying, hey, we kind of seem to deliver the products, deliver the features and throw them over the wall. And then we go to the next new shiny thing. So it's a leadership task, and it is something you have to constantly be aware of and keep pushing. And it's not pleasant. You have to keep pushing, and it's a lot of hard work from the leadership. But that's the only way to do it.
Viral, there are two more questions, and I'm going to quickly take them. One is by Dhyanesh Varade, where he said that how do you hire a team while starting up when you have not generated any money from the business as yet?
If you don't have money, then you can't hire. Then you have to get founders, co-founders. At that point, they are called co-founders if they're not getting paid. Because then you share equity with them and convince that person that you have a good vision that will go forward. But there are a couple of ways of solving the money problem. One is you go get funded from somewhere, right? Get an investor on board. And then that's a whole conversation we can have. And there are more qualified people who can help you there than me, but I can also opine on this. The other is you go friends and family, start slow and slowly build it up, right? But most of the times when you do these consumer tech plays, the idea is that there is a large initial cost. Like engineers are not cheap to get, and building products is not cheap. So there was large initial cost, but then afterwards the marginal cost of every additional customer goes down to almost zero. So it's all loaded up top. All the expenses are upfront. In case you work, if it fails, and that's fine. That's just the life of an entrepreneur. But if it works, this is the zone you want to be in. So it costs a lot of money to build the first solution, get the first customer, first 10 customers, etc., etc. So you have to have money, or you go find founders. There is a reason why almost all founders are friends before. It all starts over a beer or chai. Chal kuch karte hain. That is how all conversations start. You have to find those guys.
Right. And we have one final question from Viresh Huvali. What is your criteria for hiring interns, and how can we make them come back and join our company?
Thanks for the question, Viresh. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with interns. I feel like people interning in my company, I'm training them to go get better jobs when they graduate from college. So why not just have people intern somewhere else, and then I will just directly hire those guys versus internships. It depends on what you think about interns and what your philosophy about interns is. The original philosophy of internships were, this is a place where internships are a time in a student's life when they can join and get some practical experience and practical learning. So technically, you're not supposed to use interns as part of your productive stuff, right? Yeah, you use interns so that your hiring becomes easier next year. You meet your college hiring quotas and all of that. But that's the ideal case. A lot of people use interns as cheap labor. Right? 3 months ke liye engineer mil jayega. We'll get an engineer for 3 months over the summer for relatively low, get a few things done. If that's your idea, that's fine. That's one way of operating. It's not right or wrong. That's another way of operating. In which case, you're going to invest a lot of time in that intern, because you are now exposing your production systems to somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience. So that's a risk you have to take. In a startup, I don't think fast-moving startups can have interns unless you find that one special guy somewhere and you're like, this guy is good. Why don't you have him come? We'll do something, right? As a small startup, I don't believe small startups, fast-moving startups should have an internship program. Once you get to a stable stage, that's when you can think about this. When you have a college hiring pipeline and your talent acquisition team or your recruiting team has college recruiting goals, that's when you think of an internship program. Otherwise, it's a case by case basis.
All right, Viral, thank you so much for this very insightful chat. And I think, as summary, our viewers and our audience can reach out to you not only for C++ algorithms and any other software related problem, but also for the HR strategy. So thank you, Viral, for joining
For
us.
sure. You can find me. I'm not on Twitter, but you can find me on LinkedIn. Viral Mehta, Pocket Aces will get you there, or Loco will get you there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for this very engaging and insightful conversation. Thank you for being a part of Future of Work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priya, and thank you, YourStory.